Welcome to Fridays for Future, presented by the Kalamazoo Climate Crisis Coalition. I'm Tom Hackley. A number of people, other people here are also kind of active in the coordinating committee, but we have some other people showing up too, and that's great. We normally start out with announcements, so I'm going to kick that off. And by asking Nikki Lee to kind of update us on what is up on Fridays for Future. So
okay, yeah. My understanding is that on December 23rd, we will not be having a meeting because it's Christmas break. We'll be starting up again January 13th. And at that point, Paul Clemens from WMU will be talking about the COP27 climate change COP. I've been told, since it stands for Conference of Parties, I should probably specify which COP I'm talking about. I thought it was important to start out the new year knowing where we stood globally. And so that's why Paul will be the lead off, so that we have someplace that we can compare what we're doing to what's being done and where our status is compared to where it was last year, type of thing. I'm hoping he's going to talk about the good, the bad, the ugly, and let us know the good points as well as the bad points. And then on the 27th of January, Crystal York of the Electric Power Research Institute is going to be talking about green hydrogen. And this is something I'm really interested in, because the only thing I know about hydrogen is that the Hindenburg exploded. And so I want to know how it's a safe product for us to be using, and I want to know how it can be, because blue hydrogen, from my understanding, is not very good for the environment, and green is. So hopefully by the time she's done talking, I'll have some understanding of why hydrogen has a future. So that's through January. We're still working on the others. There's one that I'm sort of interested. Yeah, I'd love to have people's suggestions, what they'd like to hear about, because I know what I like to hear about, but there was just a COP on biodiversity. And I would like to line up a few maybe discussions on that, because even though biodiversity by itself is not climate related, it is very definitely climate dependent, as well as it talks about the other environmental issues of pesticide and deforestation, and all of that can also tie into how climate is changing. So, but if you have suggestions, please forward them on to KCCC. We'd love to get your input. Thank you.
Thanks, Nikki. And then Steve Bertman, who's got his fingers in many pies. Can you tell us how those pies are coming along?
Yeah. Thanks, Tom. Our biggest pie is the Western Climate Change Working Group has declared March of 2023 as Climate Emergency Month. We are working to arrange activities and events for every day of the month of March. We've got a whole active planning committee that's working hard on developing co-sponsors and enthusiasm about raising the awareness and making it clear that plurality of our community is very concerned about climate change. So if we welcome any groups who want to co-sponsor this Climate Emergency Month and just sign on support. And we are looking for to promote and advertise any events that are occurring during the month of March. We're building a website where will be sort of a one-stop shopping experience for finding out what's happening and who's presenting, and we're gonna have a little media blitz to try and generate a lot of attention. So if you have events or you are thinking about planning something, please do let us know. I guess I will put an email address and the website in the chat as soon as I can track them down. That's my pie news for today, Tom.
Okay, thanks, Steve. Also, I would point out that there's the Western Climate Book Club. I can't remember what it's formally called. I think the next book is going to be discussed in January. Is that correct?
Yeah, that's correct. The January 31st. The book we're reading for January is called Nomad Century: How Climate Migration Will Reshape Our World. And I can put an address to learn more about that, and with the Zoom link also in the chat.
Okay, thanks, Steve. KCCC News, our next meeting is December 15th. I think we're going to probably proceed with that. We have been meeting in person at People's Church. Those meetings are open. Anybody who'd like to come along and become another volunteer in our pantheon of stars, please join us. We run at 1 o'clock to 2 o'clock and then some. So December 15th at People's Church. Does anybody else have anything that is going on with your organizations you'd like to put on the table?
I'd like to say one thing. Citizens Climate Lobby is having its meeting tomorrow. And I think you have access to the various times that we'll start. So we'll be gathering in person for those who want to at 12:30 for snacks and casual conversation. We'll join the national call at 1. And then at 2, we'll start the chapter meeting. We're going to be planning what we want to do for the coming year. At least for the coming year and beyond. And it should be exciting and fun. So please come.
Marianne, you might want to mention where the chapter meets.
Yeah, the chapter meets at the Friends Meeting House. The parking lot is on Forbes. The address is Denner. And we also meet online for those who want to join virtually.
508 Downing Street.
Any other announcements that anybody like to make? I can't see everybody, so speak up if you, rather than raising your hand. Okay, I'm assuming that nobody else has anything else right now, so we can get into our presentation. Our presenter today is Dan Sitzma from the Kalamazoo Nonprofit Action Center, is that right? Coalition, and also the active person behind Crawl Space Eviction, the improv group. And Dan is the power behind the renovation of the old First Baptist Church downtown. They're in the middle of a fundraiser, so I'm going to make the pitch for you, Dan. Got a spare $7 million in your pocket, please send it on over to Dan. They could use it right away.
It's tax deductible.
Absolutely tax
Yep.
deductible. Or if if it's only $25, I'm sure they would accept that too. It's a big project, and we're going to hear about it today, and it's very valuable. So, Dan, if you want to get started on this, please do, and he'll have questions and answers later. And hope everybody's
Sounds
curiosity is piqued by this event. So take it away.
Great. Thank you, Tom. I appreciate it. I'm going to try to share my screen. And hopefully this works well. So I'm going to start off showing it's a video that we made. Yes, it is focused on fundraising in our campaign, but it does visually tell the story of KNAC pretty well. So I'm going to go ahead and play that. Hopefully that works. Can everyone see?
Yes.
Yes, we're good.
Now let's see if we can see and hear it. Is that coming through?
Yep. No sound.
Somebody said there's no sound.
That's right.
Right.
Oh, okay. Well, we may have to skip the video then.
Dan, wondering if that's because it's on my computer and my sound is off. Would that make a difference?
I don't know. Was there sound for anybody else?
No.
No sound for anyone. All right, I'll go ahead and put a link to the video in the chat and folks can watch that at their leisure. So I thought sound usually worked for videos, but I must be wrong. So I'll go ahead and bring up my slide presentation instead. So. Okay, can everybody see that?
Yes, that's good.
Okay, that's showing up, okay. All right, so KNAC is an organization that started in 2017, and our purpose was to repurpose the First Baptist Church building, which is the oldest church building and the oldest public building in Kalamazoo County. It's a remarkable building. It was built in 1853 and finished in 1855 and has gone through all sorts of different renovations over the years, including the right side of the building was built in 1930. And it was built to be sort of an education center for mostly Sunday school and different church-related activities that they did. Really mostly a Sunday use kind of a building. And here's some historic photos of the building. The far left is the oldest known photo of the building. That was from 1860. And that was just before they took down the steeple because the steeple was too large. It was collapsing on itself. It was the largest, highest steeple in Michigan for a while, but probably shouldn't have been. So they did take it down and put a more modest steeple on the top. So that's what you see in that middle top picture. The far right picture is from 1870. That's from a slide that I found in the archive room. of the old organ, and it's just a gorgeous picture, and you can get really down very close to it. It's a very high resolution scan of an old slide. And then the lower or the middle bottom picture is really that same arch in the 1950s. So they changed it around and modified it to fit a new organ and just kind of a new feel to the building. And so it's seen a lot. It's seen almost the entire history of Kalamazoo, which is a pretty wonderful thing and a very rare thing. We don't have a lot of buildings from that era that are still around. Abraham Lincoln spoke in 1856 in Bronson Park, and of all the buildings he would have seen, ours is the only one that's still around, which I think is a pretty remarkable fact. So a little bit about what we as an organization are. And this shows our vision and mission. We really want to have affordable space so that entrepreneurs, arts groups, and nonprofits can really have success in a facility that is filled with like-minded people and ready to help them succeed with, affordable space. And the purpose also is to preserve a historic building in our community. And we do this through a set of values that we hold very close to us. When decisions have to be made, we always lift up these values, being equity, community, historic preservation, arts and culture, diversity and inclusion, and creativity and innovation. And the three sort of pillars of what it is that we do are performing arts, historic preservation, and startup incubation. So as Tom mentioned, we are in a capital campaign right now to do a very large scale renovation of the building. It's the cost estimation on it is getting higher as the months go by, with costs going up on a lot of different things. Originally, we thought it was going to be a $7 million project, and it looks like it's going to be substantially more. So we're looking to take advantage of a lot of different funding sources, including philanthropy, but there's also a lot of public money that we're going to be seeking so that we can really get the building that we want, and that can serve the community and our tenants the best way we can. So even pre-renovation, we're able to serve a lot of different tenants. And here's a handful of them. And these tenants are from a lot of different types of organizations. We have a lot of social justice groups that are here. A lot of arts groups use it. You see Farmers Alley Theater, Queer Theater Kalamazoo, Tai Chua Dance is one of our major tenants. It's a ballet studio. They do wonderful work. And then we have some people that use our kitchen for creating food products that they sell in the community. And that's their passion and great business ventures. And then Crawl Space Comedy Theater, we have our theater right on the main floor of the building, and we do our shows there. We finally have a home. We've never had a home, a permanent home. We've always sort of just rented from other theaters and other stages, and now we have a long-term permanent home. And here's some of the performance venues. So there's 3 stages now, or 3 places that folks have performed. When the renovations are done, we hope to have 4 different performance venues in the building, so that large scale can use the performance hall, which holds about 450, and then Crawl Space Theater. After we get fire sprinkling, then we'll be able to accommodate about 160. The upper right is a black box theater in the basement. And then we'll also have, and there's no picture of this I think there's a picture later. There's a small space that we can use for coffee shop style performances like singer-songwriter or poetry. So this is kind of where we are as far as the long-term strategic plan of KNAC. So we're in phase 2. Phase 1, we did some repairs on the building that were really critical. We literally had plaster falling from the ceiling. We had water coming in the building when it would rain hard. So we got those repairs done. There was a lot of code issues that were pretty bad. We needed to install emergency lighting and a new fire alarm because those were not functional or just non-existent. So we've made it a lot safer. We've wired Wi-Fi through the whole building already. So it's a 170-year-old building that's using some of the latest technology in internet Wi-Fi capabilities. So it's pretty great. Our tenants love it, and it's really nice. So we've been very intentional with how we've created our plan. We've looked at other models around other communities. Traverse City, there's Commonplace, which is a co-working space. Green Garage in Detroit, Culture Works in Philadelphia. We've researched these places, talked to a lot of people there about how to create the best environment for startups and entrepreneurs. And our primary focus is going to be on creative entrepreneurs. And so having open spaces, very flexible spaces, like you see in this picture. This is Commonplace up in Traverse City. So this is not KNAC. These are sort of some ideas that we aspire to grow into and accommodate with our renovations. Green Garage has a lot of common traits to KNAC because it's also in a historic building over in Detroit. And then Culture Works is kind of a behemoth over in Philadelphia. They've got a lot of properties and a lot of what they offer entrepreneurs is it's a broad scale. It's more than what we'll be doing, at least initially. We may grow into more services for entrepreneurs, consulting, and things of that nature. So these are actual renderings of what KNAC is hoping to do with our co-working space. So there's 2 floors. If we go all the way back, I'll take us all the way back to slide 1. If you look at the right side of the building, that's 4 floors and a basement of different types of rooms, offices, large gathering spaces. So right now the 2nd and 3rd floors, they were renovated in 1976. And so there's no historic protection of those floors. They were gutted and sort of reformatted and new floor plans created that really were not very conducive to what it is that we want to do with the space. And so because they don't have historic protection, we really can do what we want with them, which is kind of nice. We love the historic character of the rest of the building that has been preserved sort of as it was in the time it was created. But it is kind of nice that the 2nd and 3rd floor, it's kind of a clean slate. So we can go ahead and clear out all the walls that they had and create open spaces, put in glass partitions that can be movable so that it can be flexible. So this is a workspace for entrepreneurs. And then in the evenings, it's flexible and very movable so that we can have rehearsals for theater. You know, my improv company can use it because we often need extra rehearsal space. Dance groups, other performance groups, All Ears Theater is in our building, and they need spaces to rehearse and meet. So there will be conference rooms added, lots of really nice amenities. So this is a space that is really interesting. We just call it a light well. That's what it was in the original plans. And really the only function of the space is to bring light and fresh air into the building. And we thought, let's try to use it for more. And so what we would like to do is add some sort of flooring to it so that we can make it a gathering space that's outdoors while people are in the co-working space. So the floor plans are going to change so that we can, accommodate more of the work that we want to do. And so this is the basement, and so the open area will become a black box theater with some other rooms that can support that. And then not much is changing in this first floor of the building, save for this wonderful garden you see. And this is, so the top of the picture is Michigan Avenue. And so as you're driving down Michigan Avenue, you'll see our beautiful building, and then you'll see a garden in front of it that is very worthy of the building. It's going to be a beautiful space for people to enter the building, but then also there will be places for people to gather. And we're going to focus on a lot of native plants and a lot of sustainable gardening practices so that it's not going to require an excessive amount of water. We don't plan on doing grass because of the high need of lawns for water. So we're going to try to make it as ecologically friendly as possible. And here's a picture of what it's going to look like when you walk down the sidewalk. So some pretty nice features to it. And then this is the second floor. So we're creating, so the left is as it is now. And so you see that on the far left of the building floor plan, you see 3 large rooms. And what that does is it essentially only lets us use or have about 3 building users per floor, which doesn't really make a lot of sense from a financial standpoint in economics. So the co-working spaces, you get a subscription to it, and then you come as you need to do your work at a desk, or you can pay more for a private office. But really, it's about high volume and having a lot of people in that space, which effectively creates a wonderful culture in the building when you're working next to like-minded people that are kind of following or doing something similar or following their dream. So this is the third floor, very similar changes being made. And then we want to put a skylight in the front lobby to try to get some more daylight into that space to brighten it up and make it just a nicer, more welcoming experience when you come into that space. So a couple key things that we've been able to do. So we did form a 501c3, did a lot of research on the structure of the building and the condition that it's in so that we can make sure that we're eyes wide open with all the work that we're doing. We want to have as few surprises as possible when we do the renovations. We did negotiate the gifting of the building from First Baptist to KNAC. And we are a single building local historic district in Kalamazoo, which adds a pretty strong layer of protection to the permanence of the building as it is right now, or in the period of significance, which is a period of time that, any repairs or anything that we do has to sort of bring the building back to as it was in a particular period of time, which they list as 1855 to 1951, I believe. And so we've already done some of that. There was a small brick wall that was in the front of the building, and we've taken that down to get it more in keeping with the period of significance. And then we're working on lots of other stuff. We did raise 320,000. Sorry. We did raise 320,000 to do some of those initial repairs. Our goal was 280,000, so we actually overshot that, which I'm very proud of because I never did a lot of fundraising or grant writing before, and it went pretty well. So happy about that. We did earn a Kalamazoo Historic Preservation Commission Award of Merit, which we were very proud of and very happy about, and display that prominently. And now we're in our capital campaign to do further renovations. And we did finish our master plan, and now we're working on finalizing cost estimations, and then we'll work into the renovation plans themselves. So that's a bit of the background, and I want to talk about why it is that adaptive reuse is something that is of benefit to our society and our world from a lot of different standpoints, but most of the focus is on the environmental benefits of adaptive reuse. I know I'm preaching to the choir on a lot of this, so I understand there's probably some of this information that some of you probably know even more, probably know way more than I do. Some of the things that I found interesting and significant, I want to share some of that with you as it relates to the project that we're working on. I like this little diagram talking about sustainability. That sustainability is not, you're talking about a lot of different things that go into it, and the word encompasses so many different things, but really it's about creating an environment, a place that is going to continue to be hospitable for our existence, that is going to lead to the best possible conditions for the existence of our species. So looking at some of these different elements, environment, economy, society, and all the work that we're doing really is sort of but crashing together in this really wonderful project that we have, that we're working on. There is a societal benefit to what we're doing. We're preserving the heritage of our community. We do get to take advantage of historic tax credits to help pay for some of the renovations. The economic benefit goes well beyond anything captured here. The economic benefit of nurturing more entrepreneurship and helping to infuse more into downtown Kalamazoo, into the economy there, creating that cultural hub or investing in downtown Kalamazoo as a cultural hub has benefits that reach far into every sector of our community, from just what the arts do for people in general, from identifying things about themselves to just the self-care that is inherent within the arts. And then the environmental aspect of it is pretty profound, and the more that I dug into it, the more I realized that it could be a major driver in the fight against climate change. So I think it's time to change the conversation a bit about construction and buildings, and how buildings do relate to climate change and environmental protection. So these were some stats about building operation costs. So when you're just doing a building and you have the heat, the electricity, and everything that encompasses running a building, in general in the US, yearly energy consumption, 39% of it is from from buildings, 71% of electricity, 12% of fresh water. quads of energy. That was kind of a newer term to me. 38% of CO2 emissions, which is pretty staggering. I mean, that's a lot when you think about the contribution of CO2 into the atmosphere in general, that so much of it is coming from the built environment. And then if you look at construction annually, in the US, it's responsible for 12% of energy consumption, and these other pretty significant statistics, 12% of CO2 emissions. And you think, well, that's 12%. That's far less than what the buildings are emitting throughout the year and throughout their lifetime. But if you really put it in terms of per square foot, the building in the construction process is having a far, far more significant impact in that short period of time of building these structures. I thought this was a really interesting note that I got from Luis Pena, who is the local historic commissioner, took that position, or I got that position when Sharon Ferraro, when she retired. She had been in the job for a very long time. But about recycling, and there is so much of a focus on recycling, which is wonderful. Getting that conversation away from just recycling products and bottles and cans and cardboard and those things, which is critical and is essential. But if you think about the recycling of buildings and the recycling of property, then you start to get into some numbers that I'm not sure why they're not getting more people's attention in the policy, in Washington or Lansing or in local government. That, a Portland study showed that 1% of building stock in Portland was going to be demolished over the next 10 years. And so you look at how many buildings that is, it's pretty significant. And if the county's total CO2 reduction target, or 15% of the county's total CO2 reduction targets over the coming decade could be met by simply retrofitting and reusing existing buildings rather than demolishing and building new efficient ones. So a lot of the conversation seems to be about making buildings that are beautifully efficient. And that's one part of the process. There is always going to be new buildings being built. However, when old buildings are demolished so that new buildings can be built, there's a striking and very destructive impact on the environment when that happens. One program I saw, said we cannot build our way out of this crisis. 49% of resource materials is new construction. So products, materials, services that are used annually, 49% of resources go into new construction. And it takes 35 to 50 years for a new green home to recover the carbon expended during the construction process. So if we're looking for solutions now, preventing new construction and reusing old buildings is really a very now kind of a solution, or part of the solution. And if you count demolition, the cost of demolition, putting all that spent material into landfills, it's actually 82 years to make that back. And this one, I want to dive deeper into it, but I think on the surface, it really has a very a very profound message that it's conveying, in that if you look at some of these different graphs, and the top sort of blue diamond is new construction, and that's new construction that's built to code. So it's not built in a high efficiency way. You start to see that the benefits of that construction start to go down. Rehabilitation and retrofit at baseline. So rehabbing a building, and this is in the yellow, rehabbing a building to code, ends up having a significantly more beneficial impact. So a lot of what is being talked about is new construction with high efficiency improvements to it. And that's your green line, and that does end up having a significant impact over time. But the best possible scenario is the bottom one, which is the rehabilitation and retrofit. So retrofitting, rehabbing a building, and adding up to 30% energy improvements, that's the single best solution to the buildings that we have and what impact they have on the environment. And so that's what we're doing. We're taking a building, we are implementing a host of different renovations that will improve the efficiency of it. The storm window technology now is so much better than it used to be. So we're going to be replacing all storm windows on the stained glass windows that we have. So the efficiency there will be drastically improved. Adding higher level of insulation in the roofs so that heat loss will be brought way, way down. And then an entirely new HVAC system, a high efficiency HVAC system is going to be installed in the building. And that's the biggest price tag in our renovation, is the new HVAC system, which will have a higher efficiency hot water system rather than a steam boiler that we have right now. So I would love to see more of it happening. I think KNAC in the future going forward, this is our focus now, but in the future, we hope that we can impact other properties in the community to try to see if there can be an impact made. So I appreciate the invite to do this presentation. It really got me digging deeper into embodied carbon and the impact that it has, and what the buildings that we are so proud of and so enamored with, how they really do impact our environment in a significant way. And we need buildings. We need to be in them, and we need them for doing our work and having wonderful, successful lives. We need to start thinking about how we do buildings. And so I think it is part of the conversation. I don't think we can build our way out of this crisis. I also don't think that we can adaptively reuse out of this crisis, but I think it's a significant part of it. So I think that's the end of all the slides. So yeah, hopefully that was of interest to folks, and happy to answer any questions that anybody has.
Thanks, Dan. That's fascinating. I have one question. Well, I have
Sure.
a lot of questions, but one that comes to mind is the building itself, I think, is probably mostly masonry construction. Is that correct?
So I should probably have left the picture back up. So the left side of it, the 1853 component, is timber framed and then clad with brick And then there's another kind of coating, kind of a sparging on the outside of it. But it's a timber frame and lots of plaster.
So does it allow you some maneuverability to be able to insulate the walls?
So we did discuss insulating the walls, and it's still something that could be on the table. And a large thing that we have to factor in is the acoustics of the performance hall. And so insulating that particular room does have another layer of complexity. And so I think a bigger focus is probably going to be on the windows and trying to lose as little heat from them as possible. And then also insulating the roof, because the roof tends to be a bigger loss of heat than walls. That's the understanding I was given.
My church, People's Church, we've been working on an insulation project for a while, and I got my eyes opened up about the embodied carbon in existing buildings, but also in materials. I mean, in new buildings and renovation stuff. So we were insulating using polyisocyanurate, which is the best insulating material you can come up with, but it's petroleum based. I thought, well, we got to rethink this. There must be a better way. So I think I figured out a way to proceed using fiberglass or rock wool kind of insulation. It has to be a little thicker, but we can do the same job.
So something that may happen, we're having an acoustician come in next week to analyze the room. Beth Bradburn liked that word, I could tell. We're going to have the acoustics of the performance hall analyzed, and sort of my secret hope is that the recommendation is to add acoustical panels that can actually have a dual purpose of insulating some of the walls additionally. So that is, rock wool is used all the time in acoustical treatments. I use it when I make platforms, state or theater platforms. I put rock wool underneath it. And so that way it doesn't become, I built a platform for a piano, and if you don't do that, the platform becomes another soundboard for the piano, and it creates this really undesirable audible effect. And so rock wool has a very high quality acoustical absorption. So yeah, we could kind of, I hate to use the metaphor, kill two birds with one stone, because that's not environmentally friendly, but ticks two boxes.
Tom, I have a couple of questions.
Go ahead,
Yes.
Tim.
Number one, Dan, thanks a lot for your presentation. What was the source of your final slide there with the graph?
I was going to ask that too.
That was a wonderful presentation that I'll have to track down. Let's see, it was a YouTube video that I saw, and I made sure it was a source that could be trusted. I'll send a link to that to Tom and Marianne, because it was a really profoundly beneficial video.
Yeah, and if I could just make
About-
a comment, I wonder if the people at WMU are aware of that analysis. They're tearing down a lot of buildings and building new ones there.
I know, it drives me crazy.
Another question, I know you're seeking or have already received help from local foundations. Can you
Mhm.
comment about how you accomplished that? Because KNC now has, or KCCC now has nonprofit status, we might want to seek
Oh,
some
good.
funding.
Yeah, I did a lot of research on the different foundations that are out in the Kalamazoo area, and also foundations that support projects in the Kalamazoo area. And so I got a spreadsheet from, let's see, there was a database that I was able to mine at the library, got access to it. They have access to some resources that help nonprofits. And so I started with that list, and then I went another step and looked at all of the 990 tax returns of all of those foundations, because it's available. It's public information on the IRS website. It's I think the first time the IRS has ever been helpful to me. Usually they take my money, and this got us money. And I went through the 990s and just looked at what the different projects and initiatives these foundations were supporting, and if they were related to the arts or the Kalamazoo community or some sort of entrepreneurship or economic development, then we submitted applications to those foundations, and had a lot of help from some different people. D. Terry Williams he was the head of the theater department at Western, and he's very connected in the community to the nonprofits. And so he helped guide some of that. But most of it was just kind of sitting down and grinding through the different foundations, what they like to support, trying to get some meetings and phone calls with folks at the different organizations, and we had some misses. There was some pretty significant disappointment with some of the foundations, so that happens, and you just kind of have to move on. But if one of them that I think could be of great interest to KCCC is the Enna Foundation. I don't know if you've contacted them or have had any sort of communication with them, but they're very strongly supportive of environmental projects. And yeah, we're going to go back to them because they saw our project as arts focused and entrepreneurship, and didn't necessarily see that there is a very strong environmental positive to rehabbing buildings and adaptive reuse. So I think we're going to go back to them and tell them a better story, because I don't think we really told them a very good story the first time.
Could you please spell the name of that foundation?
Yeah, just ENNA.
Do other people have questions for Dan? And again, I can't see you all, so just start speaking.
When you're renovating like the HVAC and all of that, are you completely electrifying, or are you going to keep natural gas?
That's a really great question. I think we will have a level of gas that will still be a part of it. I have to look at the plans. Solar panels we have a flat roof on part of the building, and so on that, a lot of it is going to be taken up with HVAC units, large chillers and things of that nature. And then the remaining areas, we would like to put solar on there. I'm hearing a lot. There's a huge amount of PR about these new windmills that are being created that have no moving parts or no external moving parts. And they put them on the edges of buildings, and it seems to have a profoundly higher energy production per square foot than even solar does. The trouble with that is you can only put them on the edges of buildings. That's just kind of how the air flows and how they, create that energy. The upside to it is you can put those on the edges and then solar on the remaining part of the roof. So you can have both of them. And so all these rooftops of all these manufacturing sites and, just huge square footage buildings, if eventually all of them were edged with these new kind of wind turbines, you could have, I think it could have a pretty good impact. We have to be very mindful of the State Historic Preservation Office and the fact that we're getting historic tax credits. There's certain things that we cannot do to the exterior of our building, or else we would sacrifice a huge part of our funding. So as much as we would like to put windmills on our roof, it's not something that the State Historic Preservation Office would probably allow us to do. Even the large HVAC equipment that we plan to put up there, I think they're gonna probably push back a little bit on that. So it's something that is part of every conversation.
So the new addition, well, new by 1930s, that's still historical?
Yeah, that's so this period of significance goes up to 1951. So it would certainly be within that.
Well, it's 1 o'clock, which is maybe a time that some people need to leave. So I'm going to thank you, Dan, for all of this. And if you can stick around afterwards and other people want to stay in the conversation, I'd invite that. But thank you all of you who have to leave for joining us. There will be a YouTube video of this available. So if you want to see what else we talked about after you left, feel free to do that. Can you stick around, Dan, for a while?
Sure. Yeah, and I see the mention of heat pumps, and that's definitely something that we're looking into, whether it's heat pump units throughout the building that are supported by, the rooftop units. I'm pushing for the efficient and more sustainable products. And another great benefit, and I know they're a massive corporation that doesn't do a lot of things right, but Consumers Energy does offer a lot of rebates for the inclusion of more sustainable mechanical units. So we're going to try to take advantage of as much of that as possible. And it's pretty generous. I think some of it's up to 15%. And that would end up being around $500,000 of what we're doing. So that's pretty significant.
Consumers, as long as you're continuing to buy your energy from them, they're quite friendly.
Yeah, I think that factors in. Yeah.
Dan, you'll want to keep your eye on the IRA benefits, the Inflation Reduction Act.
Yeah.
That's going to bring.
Mm-hmm.
They should have those settled on by mid-year.
Yeah, we have a developer, Matt Hollander, who tries to keeps an eye on all of that stuff, and he's been really beneficial in passing along some of that. Initially, it didn't look like there was a lot for commercial buildings. It mostly was focused on residential. And then there was some work or some savings or credits that can go to the building, the architects and general contractors for projects like ours. And so some of that may end up coming back to us. But that's a really good point.
Nonprofits and faith-based organizations fit into the IRA in a number of different places. So you might take a look at that too. It is slowly coming out. We're hoping to have a Fridays for Future presentation on what we know about IRA benefits, but we don't know a whole lot right now. They're still trying to formulate who's going to administer it, how do you apply, how do you actually qualify. There's a lot of stuff that needs to be worked out with it, but it's coming.
You said that you do some entrepreneurial development also. So are you working with like El Concilio or Black Lives, maybe Black Wall Street, for the BIPOC community to know more about what you're doing?
Yeah, I'm really glad you said that. I neglected to point out that was, it's definitely one of our values, and the way that we're living into that is by connecting with more of the BIPOC-led businesses. So right now, I think 40% of our tenants are BIPOC-led organizations or businesses. 50% are women-led. So we really are trying to have that equity component to be a real thing that we're living out. And reaching out to when our capacity expands, then we'll be communicating with a lot more of those organizations. Black Wall Street is wonderful. They've had a lot of success, and many of our tenants are part of that, and so sort of tangentially related to it. Absolutely. That was another great article that I read about sustainability and adaptive reuse. Is oftentimes it's only focused on environmental, economic sustainability, and the equity component is not included in that story. And this was a really remarkable research study that was done on more of those benefits. And it's something that I want to dig into more. But it talked a lot about the obsolescence of buildings and what creates the obsolescence, and things like their location, some of the economics, the social obsolescence. And the thing that struck me about our project was just how much we have done, and that naturally has been done, to reduce the level of obsolescence of this building. It's already downtown, which is a huge help. But then from the standpoint of the economics, we're really capturing two of the primary legacies of Kalamazoo, which are performing arts and entrepreneurial innovation. Those are two huge drivers of Kalamazoo's economy, and also our culture and heritage. So those two things are very solid in this project, and then some of the other components are political and things of that nature, and how the community views this project and is nothing but positive. We've gotten a lot of just tremendous amount of support on every level. So thank you for asking about that.
I want to add a little bit about the embodied carbon discussion.
Please do. I'm just like scooping up this information so much.
Yeah.
It's so interesting.
it's pretty inspiring. So the webinar that got me going on it, the presenter talked about life cycle analysis of buildings. And that, you know, on average, you obviously can't, every building is different, but on average, let's talk about a 50-year life cycle. And if you look at that 50 years, about half of the energy and carbon that goes into the building is put into it before you start using it.
Mm-hmm.
And about 50% is operational usage. So he said, you know, here we are, we've put all this effort into efficiency and conservation of energy in the operations of the building. And that's good. Over 50 years, if you can have a big impact, you know, it keeps on giving. But we need to save carbon right now.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
That, you know, so we really should pay attention to that upfront 50% in a big way. And that's where the, you know, the reuse, I mean, it's a huge, you know, if you can reduce 30,000 square feet of construction in Kalamazoo by getting your project going, which you've already done, that's a big impact. The concrete, the cladding, the insulation, those are the three biggies. You can have a huge impact right now today when we really need to have big impacts.
Yeah.
So I really applaud the work that you've done just from the point of view of the climate impact. It's wonderful. I am also an architecture buff and a building guy, and so the preserving the architecture is marvelous, and you've managed to combine into your project the good works of making space available for fledgling activities and cultural activities that keep our community going. So you've got a triple whammy, Dan. And I couldn't think of anything that is just more powerful than the project you're doing. And I really thank you for doing that.
Thank you, Tom. That means a lot. Yeah, it was a rare opportunity, and I can't remember who the quote's from. I think it might have been Jacques Cousteau. That, you know, if you have the opportunity to live an extraordinary life, you have no right to keep it to yourself. And I feel like, yeah, everything was just aligning with me to be a part of this project, and I just fell in love with it. And it definitely helps my businesses. So there's sort of a selfish motivation in there. I don't shy away from that. It's mutual benefit on so many different fronts that it's a beautiful thing, and I'm lucky to have found it, and for it to be something that I could use my network of people to help me with, to the point where I'm just a teeny little part of it now, and it's taken on, it's attracted a lot, of wonderful people to the project, and the team is just phenomenal.
Well, it's great, and we really appreciate it. And I think your affiliation with KCCC is going to be beneficial going both directions. So
thank you
it's been again for you're willing to make this presentation today, and I hope we'll see you in our sessions more in the future.
Yeah, I thought I saw Kate's hand. Did Kate have?
Oh, I did. I was just going to mention the more you insulate and use the good windows and all that, I think you can stay completely away from gas. And I would encourage you to do that.
Oh, Yeah, okay. I know I need to ask more questions about that to our engineers and everybody. 'Cause
Well, a
that's
number
really
of
good point.
cities have now passed ordinances that new buildings can no longer have natural gas. So,
Mhm.
the technologies are there. It's
Yeah.
just a matter of, like when New York activated theirs, they said, this will make it cheaper because if all new buildings below 8 stories in New York can't be natural gas, that's a lot of stuff that, they have to get the technology down.
Mhm.
And so that New York, one of their motivations was to make it cheaper for the average person.
Mhm.
And
So
Yeah, and if you're building.
Sorry to intervene. We need to end this.